first of all, express my displeasure that he has left the tree without mentioning it. Because on this panel, the two of us are not free to mention beyond what he has said. The two of them as scholars could, and that would have helped the analysis. But unfortunately, he has set the tree in the forest, in the bush. So that's a debt to you, sir.
Dr. David will tell us where the tree is.
Two, I wanted to give you, he brought in the historical perspective, which was very correct, but he left out another two components, two issues that cannot be ignored in this conflict. There was a mini genocide in 1965. Again, an attempt to disenfranchise the Kinyarwanda speakers in Eastern Congo. What you talked about, the 72 law, was an attempt to correct. It was an after effect of what had happened in 1965. Two, if you may recall, there was a genocide against the Banyamulenge in 2006, 2007. We had thousands of refugees who fled here at that time. And a good number of them were assisted by IOM to go to Canada. Now, as you are dealing with that, then you have what you have mentioned of the Rorang Kunda group. So you have the Banyamulenge, that was suppressed, then the Banyamasisi. So the current conflict, M23 are talking about, are the Banyamasisi in northern Kivu. I mean North Kivu. So what are these pointing to? I would like to state that these conflicts in Congo are actually categorized into two. They are resource conflicts and ethnic conflict. Or identity conflict. So the ethnicization is talking about, that's the identity. People who are being told you are non-citizens. And you have heard words like go back to where? Now, interestingly, in the run-up to the peace process you have referred to where Honorable Chiunga was chairing, we had had eminent persons trying to help in resolving the conflict in Eastern Congo. You remember Nelson Mandela? After him, was it Mandela first or Nyerere? Nyerere first. And Nyerere is on record to have said this is a colonial problem and you cannot tell people to go away unless you are saying they are going with the territory. And I thought that was clear to the parties interested, but they seem to have ignored it for reasons I'm yet to know. Two, you cannot address the Congo conflict unless, like you put it in your remarks, you dealt with the question of who is controlling the resources in Congo. There are areas in Congo where black man is not even allowed to reach. In this country, which is in Africa here. And you mentioned the MONUSCO, the UN. Since 1960, has anybody questioned why that problem has not ended? Despite the last version of the process, or rather effort of the UN being the most expensive UN operation since UN history, since the beginning of the United Nations. These are issues that should attract interest for investigation. Unfortunately, given my dress, I cannot divulge in what delve into addressing these issues. Otherwise, I may cause a diplomatic incident. But to your question, as UPDF would wish to see peace in Eastern Congo, because the construction of roads was not just a rapprochement, it was a pursuit of economic interests. That Ugandan businessmen, that the market for Uganda is actually Eastern Congo. And so, if you want to exploit that market, you must deal with infrastructure. Because as you know, the infrastructure are the blood veins of business or commerce. But as construction starts, M23 emerges, as you put it. That's a matter of interest that, again, I cannot discuss freely, as I said earlier. But we have done our part of ensuring the safety of the Ugandans on this side of the border. That does not make us sit and relax. So for Dr. Chiyonga and the Uganda government in general to have put efforts at that time, it was a manifestation of how serious we are about the stability in Eastern Congo. And for me, in my understanding, I was not informed, but in my understanding, the choice of Dr. Chiyonga was based on what you have just told us. He has relatives across the border. He was a minister of defense. He understood these matters of security better than any other person. And so he was a resource that the conflicting parties should have exploited to the maximum. Fast forward, the current phase, the East African Community Heads of States Summit did see a way forward as another attempt at the Dr. Chiyonga approach of a political settlement. So, erect an interventionist force, create a ceasefire, and then peace talks go on. So the mandate of the East African Intervention Force, ECRAF, as the acronym was to actually create an enabling environment for political discussions. It's his history. When it came to 8th of December 2023, the force was told to pack and go. Because, in the words of the Kinshasa government, we were supposed to fight M23. And that was contrary to the mandate the head of state summit had given us. In my humble view, that's when the golden opportunity of dealing with the M23 question was lost.
The implications of security of the region.
You see, we live in a conflict-prone region. You have the Sudan conflict system, the Horn of Africa conflict system, and the Great Lakes conflict system. These three feed on each other. Once you have a conflict in one of the three regions, it will spill over to other conflict systems. You have been dealing with the Horn of Africa. You are not even home and dry. You see what happened in Ethiopia. You see what's happening in Somalia. You have seen what is happening in Sudan, the Sudan. You see what's happening in Central African Republic. I think there are about 3 or 4 sets of forces in Central African Republic, peacekeeping. Is there peace in Central Africa? Now, for us, the concern is that now you have a corridor for terrorism from the Sahel through Chad, Central Africa, down south, and linking up with the IS and Al-Shabaab in Somalia. It's just like you are following the Rift Valley, the eastern arm and the western arm. So this is a serious matter. So anything that threatens the stability in any of the member states around here creates room for those negative forces, as Dr. called them, or the enemies of peace, if I may use that word, that are going instead to exacerbate or to make the situation go from bad to worse.